let's see. Okay, and we are live.
Perfect.
Okay, welcome, Leonid. Thanks for making the time to be with us on geNEOusChats today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we've got a few things to get through today, but just for the people in our network that might not know you, would you mind just giving us just a brief introduction, you know, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Leonid, and I'm creator, founder of Anticafe, which is a French network of co-working cafes. It's something I built 8 years ago, just in the beginning of co-working, of remote work. And the principle is something in between of a cafe and a co-working space. Those are spaces that are as easily accessible as any cafe. You have drinks, hot and cold, you have coffee, tea, but you don't pay for what you're consuming, you pay for the time you spend at the Anticafe. And then you have it's per hour per day rate at €6 an hour, 26 euros a day. You have unlimited access to all F&B services as well as all the equipment you need for work. And so basically, our first clients 8 years ago were freelancers, entrepreneurs, students, and we've seen this evolving to companies and actually the general public using these kind of places.
Okay, so we'll come in a bit more depth into the concept because it's really interesting, and I don't think I've seen one of these. I'm in Scotland. I haven't seen one that works exactly like this here.
I don't think there is any.
Don't think so. It actually what I thought of immediately when I read the concept on your website was about my time in Japan, going to the internet cafes, the sort of manga cafes, the cat cafes, etc. It's all the same model where you go in and you pay per hour, and it includes access to all the resources and the drinks, etc.
Absolutely.
Was that inspired at all? Was by the Japanese model?
No, not really. Actually, I've seen the manga cafes after I've opened Anticafe. So not really. My inspiration came from me loving working in cafes. I've been doing it my whole life. Actually, I'm an entrepreneur since 17 years old. So when I had my second company, and even when I had offices, I loved working from cafes. And so I'm born in Ukraine, then I lived for some time in Russia, for some time I lived in the United States. And actually, over there, the cafes and restaurants are always open-minded and allowing you to spend some time there with a laptop. When I came to France, when I came to Paris 10 years ago, the cafes were actually quite hostile, I would say. They're still a bit, but they were really hostile at that moment. And except Starbucks and McDonald's, you couldn't really sit with a laptop in a cafe. And even if you could, it wouldn't feel good. The table is tiny, the Wi-Fi is pretty much non-existent, and it's noisy, and you really feel it is disturbing. And so that's why, since I haven't seen any in Paris, but basically in Europe, in most of the cities I've visited, I haven't seen cafes and places where you can easily work, where you can easily sit, just have some time to spend some time to meet people, not just to eat or to drink. I decided to create one, and this model of paying per time, I thought it was the best one, which would permit the flexibility, which would permit me to make my clients feel generous. I'm in generous service because they have unlimited access to whatever they want to eat, they want to drink. But at the same moment, it would respond to the need I felt, and fortunately, many other people felt too.
Now, that's interesting because I'm exactly like you, that I love working in cafes. I think quite a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, first of all, before we look at, you know, Anticafe and how it kind of blends those two things, what is it about cafes that you think, I mean, why would you personally prefer to work in a cafe than an office, for example? What is the appeal?
I think there are a few things to that. One is just location. I can't have a cafe where I am. An office, I have to go there. So it means that if I have a meeting somewhere in the middle of the city and my office is 20 minutes away, at least 20 minutes, I need to waste that time. The second point, and I think this one is very important, is actually it might be surprising for some people, but concentration. At a cafe, you don't have your colleagues. You don't have your fridge as you have at home. You don't have a sofa. So going to a cafe, you just have your table, your coffee, or whatever you take, and you have to be concentrated for those 2, 3, 6 hours you spend there, you're just producing, you're doing whatever you plan to do. And surprisingly, even though there is quite often more noise, you are more concentrated, so more productive. And I think the third point about cafes is the possibility to meet other people. You know, this atmosphere, something that you can't really describe, but this is the feeling that in cafes, usually it's a bit more energetic than in an office, in a library, whatever. And I love that. And many people do. I think you too, you should love it.
Yeah, I think that's what draws me to cafes as well. It's like you say that what critics of the cafe working ethos would say, oh, it's the noise, but there's something about the noise that is just a general hum. It's not something you need to focus on. Whereas if you're in an office, even the conversation over at the photocopier, there's part of you listening to that because it might be relevant to something you're working on, or you concentrate in a different way. And also, it's like you say, people feel licensed to interrupt you when you're working in an office. And to get the concentration back, it's finished. I mean,
they say that actually after being interrupted, even for 3 seconds, like, have you got the email? Yeah, I got it. It takes you 15 minutes to get back to the same level of concentration. 15 minutes. And at the office, you constantly get interrupted, especially in the flex office, which is the kind of, I would say, a fashion now, which will stay a fashion in the way the offices are made. So it means that if you need to deep work, office is not the best place for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I remember first hearing that fact there was a TED talk by Jason Fried. You might have seen the same one. It was called Why Work Doesn't Happen at Work.
No, not this one.
No, because he compares it to sleep. He says that there's 5 levels of, falling into sleep, into kind of REM sleep. And once you get woken up, you've got to start at level 1 again. And it's the same with concentration. And so
it might
productivity.
Be that I've seen it because, I remember that idea. I really loved it.
Probably it really sticks with you, doesn't it? Because then you think about productivity and how much time is wasted in offices by the small interruptions of people saying, as you say, did you get the email? Yes. Okay. Where was I? Because, some of us are working on pretty creative stuff that requires us to be in a state of flow.
And I would say not necessarily creative, because it might be something I wouldn't describe as more creative, but like even doing a complex Excel, doing calculations, so just even writing just a detailed email. Whenever you need to concentrate, because creative, many people wouldn't feel that they're doing creative jobs, but not even creative in terms of design or whatever jobs, but just concentrated jobs would be concerned by this type of distractions.
Yeah.
And this is something I feel like we have changed and we'll be able to keep with the COVID. And one of few but good things about the things that have happened these last months. So I really hope that in future we'll be able to choose our working location based not on whatever was planned for this day or whatever is the office location, but whatever we have to do during the day. And I really hope that we'll be able to go to the places where the deep work is the best, or stay at home if it is the best for the person when we need to do deep work, to go to the office or to a meeting room if we need to interact, if we need to brainstorm, to go online like we're doing now with the Zoom Teams. Unfortunately, it exists, whatever tools are there. When I need a meeting which is not, I wouldn't say creative or brainstorming meeting. And this flexibility, this opportunity to choose the best way, the best place of working on based on what you have to do during the day should, I think, make us much happier and much more productive.
I think that a lot more people will be thinking this way now after, because sometimes you don't realize what an issue is until you experience the alternative.
Right.
And so people are now, they've been working from home, and, not everybody can concentrate at home. For some people, it's been worse. But with family and things, but they've learned, certainly everybody, I would say, has learned a lot about their environment, productivity, concentration, and how interconnected those things are. And so I wonder, you've just opened again after the pandemic, but I think we already saw quite a shift before this, that the old stereotypical idea of the people that go to co-working of being the digital nomads, the entrepreneurs, and it seems to be broadening now a little bit.
Absolutely.
I mean, what would you say, what types of people, if you talk about personas, do you see in Anticafe, and why do you think they come there?
Yeah, just if you allow, I would make a small distinction between co-working and Anticafe. Most people put it together, but those are not actually the same things. I would call Anticafe more of a third place, and co-working is a co-working. So
Mm-hmm.
co-working is more as an alternative to the office. Co-working is a place you rent a working station or maybe 200 square meters, whatever you need, but per month basis. So it's just an alternative to renting out an office with a long-term lease. Whether third place like Anticafe, we're alternative to working from home, we're alternative to meeting rooms, and we're just a short-term per day, per hour working space. So this is important distinction, difference, which brings different kind of users. So now getting back to your question, what is the difference? What are kind of people using it? I think it's pretty interesting that this kind of change started happening a few years ago, at least here in France. Here in France, we started having corporate clients probably 3-4 years ago, which started sending their employees to Anticafes and other third places like we. And first clients were, and it's the same here, it's the same today, just accelerated. So the first are creative guys, like those who need to meet other people, who need to get inspired, those who are not used to working in the same environment all the day. The second type of folks who use it are commercial, those salespeople, those who move, those who meet a lot of people. And then you start seeing, and usually within the same company, you can start other teams, you can see other people, other teams joining them. And those actually, whatever kind of profiles, I wouldn't say that there is age criteria, neither I wouldn't say that there is job criteria. It's more just by time. So those who are flexible, like again, creative, salespeople, developers, they're much faster to get adapted to such kind of locations, such kind of places, and others take a little bit more time. But today, fast forward again, today, post-COVID, actually all the jobs that can be done remotely, based on what I see, start doing it, start going to certain places, start going to co-workings. Many companies looking for flexibility rent out co-working spaces, but I mean big chunks of co-working spaces as an alternative to an office, or they're reducing their office space, but instead of renting out another office space, they're renting co-working locations. And the same with the third places.
Yeah, it's really interesting shift, isn't it? And I've experienced this myself with an organization I was working with recently that paid for a couple of days per week for me in a co-working that was local to me because their office is 3 hours away. And of course, you've got it's a waste of time, not to mention the environmental impact of the commute.
Absolutely.
And there's really no need to do that. So there's a lot of people like me who are, whether you're working freelance or working with an organization, it's becoming more of an accepted model, isn't it? And just to dig into your model a little bit more, because I like the idea of, that when you're in a cafe, it's that feeling of, even if they're on the surface okay with you being there, there's always that feeling of, yeah, maybe I should buy another coffee. And, before you know it, you can't type because you're shaking with caffeine. And,
Right.
There's that feeling of kind of obligation. And you've taken all of that away by saying
Absolutely.
it's here if you want it. So what I'd like to do is just find out a bit more about, what is included, what is included in terms of the facilities and, food and drink and things in your cafe. And also, how has this changed? What kind of stuff have you dropped or added, as you learned more about this? Because it's you're in quite new territory with this model.
Yeah.
So what has changed?
So what do I have today? Today, my goal is to make you feel as actually being at your friend's place. So we're trying to make people feel as comfortable as possible. And then we just provide them with all the services they need. Imagine that if you go to your friend's house out of city and you're remote working there for 1 week, as many people have done during the pandemic. That's the same feeling we try to give to our clients. And we say, hey, here is some coffee. We have really good coffee, which is roasted in Paris, which we buy from Brazil, from a family company, which we know, and really good one. But we say, here it is. We're gonna make it for you if you want, whatever you want, whatever type of coffee you want. We get one. You want to take 10, you'll get 10. All of them gonna be good. You have some fruits, you have some snacks, you have cold drinks now in summer. It's also service. Take whatever you want. At the same moment, you've got, of course, Wi-Fi, you've got the printer, the scanner, projector, if you have screens, you have meeting rooms. and just be comfortable, use whatever you need. If you want to be sure that this particular table, this particular meeting room going to wait for you, please reserve it in advance. If it's free, go use it. So literally, we're giving all you need to have some, again, snacks, some coffee, some energy. We don't have proper lunches. We give everything you need to work, and then we make people as free as possible to choose whatever they need and they use. And so you've been asking what has changed, and that's pretty interesting because we've been the first type of this location, this service in Europe, basically. When I opened Anticafe 8 years ago, we were the first, and there were just 18 coworkings in France. So the coworking business was just being born. Our first clients, as I told you, were mostly young, mostly early adopters. So they've been looking for a lot of community sense, and they were not looking for some premium services. As our clients started growing to more corporate clients, becoming elders, freelancers, started being not only 25, but also 55, they started expecting more qualitative services. So we changed our F&B offer. We changed our coffee, we changed our snacks, becoming more and more responsible, more and more green, which is basically our type of offer now, which is local. But also, especially now with the video calls, with desk calls we're doing all the time, there was an expectation, a need for meeting rooms, for phone booth. And so something that we've provided our locations and our clients with in order to respond to new ways of working and interacting.
Yeah, because that would be my my concern, that, and I want to ask you about that. What I love about this is the flexibility that you can just go. I mean, at the moment, I have, say, a membership, and there's always that feeling of like, well, I better go because if not, it's just wasting, or there's that sort of feeling. It's a strange relationship with it. It's not if in a typical co-working space, it's not actually that flexible, really.
It's not.
Because, many days I wake up and I think, well, today I feel like working home because maybe, my partner is out and the house is quiet and I'll just work here, or the weather's bad and I don't feel like it. And some days I'm in town and I just want to go in. And so the flexibility is great. But what you mentioned about things like, one of the reasons that I didn't go to the co-working today was I had a few meetings, and it's sometimes not that easy to find the quiet space. And so this is all something I wanted to ask you about. You want it to feel like, your friend's house. And you mentioned the energy of a cafe and, the idea that you can chat. And of course, one of the best things about the both co-workings and cafes is the kind of cross-pollination, the collaboration, the opportunities for networking, organic and authentic and all of that. It's amazing. But there's also the people that come there with the need to dig in, be quiet, concentrate, and have meetings as well without the chatter in the background. So what is the etiquette in Anticafe? How do you help customers understand what is and isn't okay? And how do you use the space to balance those diverse needs?
So actually, the space is the first reply to this kind of needs, because all Anticafes have different either levels or different rooms where you have different atmospheres. So the main room, the main open space you will always enter, where you have the team, is always louder. It's always more cafe-like atmosphere. And then, for example, now I'm at Anticafe Lafayette in Paris, and we have 2 more levels. Those are much calmer. One is more like a big meeting room that is used for working or for presentations. Another has a few small meeting rooms where there is no music, where people don't enter from the street, so they have the street noise. And so this also already naturally makes different atmospheres. Then if the team sees that, for example, there is someone working near one, someone talking loudly, the team will just quietly go and say, hey, please, if you need to make a call, maybe you'll move to this place. I mean, for example, to the meeting room, it's available, just go there. You'll be more comfortable. Also, this person won't be disturbed. And this is, I'd say, the beauty of our model, that we have team on the place which permits some moderation, which is not the case in co-workings, I mean, big co-workings. But also, as I said, we have phone booth and meeting rooms for that. So normally, if you need to make a call, have a quiet space, you would go there.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds like there is a great balance, and I mean that's going to be part of the appeal. And this is kind of the last area that I wanted to ask you about, is because I'm sure you see it as well. You're on the ground. You see the direct impact of this, but the way of working, I don't think that it has the change through 2020, 2021 has been a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be, obviously the dust is still settling. We don't know exactly what the long-term effects are, but I think I'm not alone in saying we strongly feel like we're not going to go back to how it was before. So in terms of the way you're forecasting, because you've obviously got a vision for growth. You're talking about franchising opportunities. You're talking about expanding to other cities in France.
Absolutely.
What is the strategy and the vision in terms of how you work with this emerging market of the kind of corporate clients? And I'd like you to maybe think about as well. I'm really curious for our network about education institutions as well, if you're seeing much traffic from them, or if you foresee that as a market, for universities and things with diverse faculty, more people doing remote classes. Are you seeing people from this industry feeding into the future strategy as well?
Let me start from remote work, from the way we see the companies will work and will function. My knowledge is mostly based on my understanding on France, and all the countries are not the same. There are cultural differences, but still it should be pretty similar within most of European countries. So in France, what we're expecting based on different studies, questionnaires, talking to managers, and actually seeing on what type of agreements are being made in between the companies and the employees, is that most companies would allow 2 days of remote work per week, which is interesting with that. And it's based on the studies we see now, but also from our experience before the COVID. When you get more than 1 day per week of remote work, your habits change. So during the pandemic, the last months, remote work was equal working from home, but it's not normally the case. And when people have more than 1 day of remote work per week, they tend to go at least once in a while, once a week for some, once a month for others, out of home. They tend to go to third places, sometimes to co-workings, depends on what they have, just to change the environment, to see something new, something different. And this change, which seems not that big, actually can be a big change for the ways we live, for the ways the cities are built, and the ways the companies like we operate. So if we start from the bottom up, the biggest change might be that people, especially those who have 3 days for remote work per weekend, there are also companies like that, might even consider, do we continue living in the cities, or if we go further and we go to, for example, to Paris just for those 2 days, which might change slightly, but considerably the way the cities work and the way that real estate works. Second effect of this is that then we need less office. We need other types of offices. We need maybe more flexible or flex office. We need more meeting rooms, but we need less surface, which will have also probably a big effect of real estate, commercial real estate, and office real estate. But also that creates a big new need for such location as Anticafe, as flexible third places, flexible, highly flexible co-working. Quite often we call it micro co-working. And I've done some estimations in France, based on the data we found, there would be normally a need of 500,000 places, just desks of remote work in third places where there are less than 5,000 available. So 100 times more need for third places, desks for remote work. And I think it's not the case only for France, but for most countries, which brings a huge opportunity responding to the need of those remote workers. I think a key to answering it, one of the keys would come from how the companies handle it. Two things. First, do companies allow remote work, which seems to be the case? And second, do companies pay for remote work locations? And if they do pay, if the companies agree that the employees have the right to choose, and since the companies economize on their offices, they can give a budget for co-workings, then it will create almost a new industry, I would say, of third places devoted to remote work. Whereas when I'm speaking about the education, honestly, I have less data because we just didn't experience it that much yet. To my understanding, it should definitely be the case. The students are one of the most flexible folks, and they just go wherever it is good for them, whatever the budget is good, but also the conditions are good. They can move, they are flexible. So if the education continues being remote partly, and there is no reason for it not to be, I think those could be also big new clients, but we haven't yet felt it, and I don't have particular information about this.
Yeah, it seems like there are a number of opportunities, as you say. I mean, obviously the demand is huge and supply is still limited. So, right there.
At least it seems being huge, because you said the dust is still settling, especially now we're facing summer and people are tired of big cities. So it's still going to be a park for the next 2-3 months. We start really seeing it in September and October.
I think it's almost been like an experiment for companies that, making change is always, it's very, very difficult. And
Absolutely.
Very few organizations are outliers. They just kind of, everyone has the office in corporate HQ in the city center, and that's just the way things are. And, it's difficult for people to kind of make the move and try something else. But this situation has, of course, forced us to do that. And now, I mean, you can't help but think that companies, as you say, are looking at their own real estate, at the their balance sheet in a precarious, fragile economic environment, and thinking, why are we paying all this money for this huge building that
especially
we've asked our employees and they don't want to be there?
Yeah, they feel happier. The company works, and many teams said that they were more productive.
Yeah,
and we can get some savings. Just why would you come back? Except for some really specific companies, for example, security-wise, or really some specific choices of managers, which also merit to exist, but I think which would be an exception in the world after the COVID.
Yeah, I don't think offices will disappear, because, I mean, when I have conversations with colleagues and companies, and I say, well, have you considered the more flexible environments in third places, and, using this space for your agile teams, and, if you want to scale up quickly for demand, then you can place a team here and widen your hiring pool, and all these arguments. One thing that they often say is, well, yeah, but we still need an address. It's like a prestige thing, and I get that, but it doesn't have to be 3 million square meters,
No, it
can be small, just a place to have your conferences, your meetings, or whatever, for to entertain visitors, or, to store things.
Also to spread your culture.
Yeah.
Maybe to do some onboarding. It would be a more symbol and a place of interactions, a place of, I think spreading culture is important, but it would not be the place where the employee spends every working day. And that's the difference.
Yeah, it's like a nucleus.
Do you know how much does it cost on average, at least, again, France, but I think it should be representative for many countries, an office location per employee? I mean, all the costs, rent and electricity, managing per employee per year.
I've only read the statistic that it can be around 40% cheaper to have your employee working in a third place, but I don't know the actual per head figures.
If you pay it, and many companies don't even pay it yet. So in France, it's 13,500 in average per employee.
Wow.
It's more than 1,000 euros per employee per month in average.
Crazy.
And in Paris, it's much more expensive than in smaller cities. In London, it should be, I think, easily twice that price. So we're speaking actually about something pretty considerable. And again, given that remote work actually makes employees happy and companies more productive, I see really no reason to come back to the world as it used to be.
I agree. And let's not forget the environmental impact of commuting as well, which is huge, especially in city centers, air quality. And the interesting thing is that it allows traffic jams. Oh, yeah. I mean, I live in the Scottish Highlands. We don't see many of those, but I used to live in Barcelona, and it was awful. But the interesting thing as well is that, organizations or, outfits like Anticafe get to be part of almost a reimagining of the purpose of urban space, because the idea of the business hubs as being the nucleus, in this prime real estate, these offices that are, there's areas like, the financial district of London is like a ghost town. after 6 o'clock. It's like El Mariscal in Quito as well. It's like it's vibrant until 5 o'clock and then dead. And so, why shouldn't our urban centers have more vibrancy? And yet the real estate prices push out these more independent businesses, and they become ghost towns, and all the businesses get located to the edge of the city, and people get pushed out. So this has been, a decline of urban space and the value of it for years. I mean, do you think there's a chance that this shift might be a way of actually repurposing space?
I really hope that yes. I'm not sure it might happen then in the location like city, like the most central one and the most expensive in the world. I think those will stay attractive to big companies and probably mostly occupied by offices and big companies. But if we're speaking about city centers and commercial areas of mid-sized, small towns, there I think we might see a big change. And people working from distance, it means also people with good salaries, with good education and good jobs spreading from mostly city centers of big cities all over the countries, meaning bringing more life, bringing more economy to small cities, even sometimes towns and villages. There's also an opportunity to create, I think, even a need than more than an opportunity of working. I would say third places like Anticafe, like small co-workings, not only in the city centers of big cities, but spread around, spread in suburbs, spread in small cities. And again, in France, I know many mayors, many cities are welcoming such kind of initiatives, even helping. And this is a good opportunity to build them, to create them, and then it brings a physical center for people to meet. For example, in a town, Brittany, one of the restaurants, I love that people went less before. Will go. I know from Paris much more now because it just feels right. But you wouldn't do it for the weekend. You can do it if you spend half of the week there. And so this opportunity of creating such locations in those small cities, which will bring people again with good salaries there, which will make revive and bring sales to the small businesses around. And so I think we could bring energy and life to the city centers, as you said, which were declining for quite a moment. I mean, city centers, small cities.
I mean, this is really interesting. And this is what makes me think that, we said a couple of times the dust is still settling, and all of the, as this shifts, there's a lot of these knock-on effects that we can't quite perceive yet. We can imagine, but it's like a complete transfer of how we interpret space and where the funding goes and where the energy goes and, where the business goes, which is incredibly exciting to be part of.
Well, for example, we are trying to do now, we're trying to build a small Anticafe because today Anticafe is still small, but it's in between 100 to 500 square meters. Now we're willing to implement small locations, 20 to 50 square meters, but integrated in commercial centers, integrated in big shops, integrated in the hotels. So places which are already well located, which have employees around them, remote workers, but who don't have an offer for remote work. So we're building these Anticafe bricks, we call it Anticafe Light, into those commercial areas.
That sounds like a great thing. I mean, I see that the one kind of final area I wanted to ask you about was actually about partnerships. And I mean, it makes perfect sense about in terms of location and people who are traveling and, as you say, they can extend their holiday or extend their trip, which is, I mean, that's amazing. I'm sold. Yeah, completely. But the one thing on the co-working side, which I know is just a part of what you are, but I see more partnerships coming up now with actually with universities, particularly because of the cross-pollination part. So it started really with kind of design and business students and students studying entrepreneurship and things like that. It's a natural space for them. So I wonder in a space like Anticafe, what's the kind of do you put on kind of events, or do you facilitate networking and knowledge sharing? Do you take that part of what co-working is into your model?
Absolutely, yes. And it's an important part for us because in contrast to classical co-workings, we have more diverse clients. Around the same table, you can easily find an employee of a big company a freelancer, and a student. And we have actually had quite a few teams and projects launched just like that. People sharing the same table, speaking of, hey, what are you doing? That looks interesting. Maybe you can give me a hand or that, and then forming a team, at least becoming clients of each other. So this diversity, which is pretty unique to third places, to places like Anticafe, because we are open to all kind of public and with no barriers to enter, we attract them. Brings really interesting communications and community. So what we're trying to do in order to enhance that is, on one hand, as you said, organizing events, or maybe mostly hosting events made by our community, organized by our clients, helping facilitating them to do and to communicate on it. And on the second hand, we're trying to proactively put people in touch by our team who knows the client, because every day our employees would interact with every client. There is no one who can just enter as in the office and not interact with anyone. And we've actually just created during the pandemic, and we're launching the next week a small service which we've called Anti-Connect, and something that would allow you to know who are the clients around you. If you see at Anticafe that there is someone interesting, because I have a sticker, for example, her laptop, sitting in front of you, but you don't know what he or she is doing, this tool would permit you to know more about people around you at Anticafe at this particular moment, in order to help you interact and help build teams and friendships. And so it's something we're going to test just the next Monday at 2 Anticafes.
I would love to hear how you get on and how you facilitate that balance of networking, which is the best thing about the co-working space, you know, and the cross-pollination of ideas, but also the kind of, I don't want to talk to anyone right now, you know, concentration, and how you manage that.
People are smart. You don't have to manage everything. Like, for example, one of the questions I quite often have is, how can I give all the food unlimited? Like, okay, maybe I have this comment like hundreds of times. Okay, maybe it works in France, but here's my country. Whatever the country is, it can be German, it can be a country in South Africa, whatever. In my country, it would never work. And actually, it does work. I heard it from Italians who have an Anticafe. And in Italy, people are respectful. People are smart. If you give them just an atmosphere where it works, people usually respect each other, respect the business. So I think the same with disturbing / non-disturbing. In 99% of the cases, people just figure it out. And when we need to, this 1% of cases, just to help to facilitate, our team is there for that. But in most cases, again, people know how to figure it out, and they're much smarter than we can expect.
That's great. And it's funny, you've been asked that a lot of times. I did think about that, but there is also, like you say, it's the idea of reciprocity, because people have got a place that serves them and they're excited about and they want to be part of. So why would they would respect the boundaries? No, I mean, I think that, as you say, give people trust. Yeah, absolutely. So where can people go to find out more about Anticafe? Because might be people interested in the model, because of course you're franchising, in visiting, or even in sending their employees there as well and making it known to them.
Yeah, you find all the information on our website, which is anticafe.eu. Everything there, all the contacts, and you can also contact me, Leonid Goncharov. You can find me on LinkedIn. We're happy to talk to you and to catch up. That's the best way.
Sure. Well, we'll share your contact after we post the video. And thank you so much for your time. I'm genuinely quite excited about the concept because it seems something that seems, on one hand, you think that seems quite simple. And then on the other hand, you think, but why is no one else doing this? It just really, really works. It captures the best of both worlds. So it's a really exciting concept. And it's been great talking to you, especially as part of how things are changing and what part Anticafe might play in that. So thank you for sharing your time and your insights.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your questions and for this discussion. It was really interesting. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Best of luck with Anti-Connect. I hope it goes well.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.